ਜਸ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਹੋਸਟ ਆਸ਼ਮਿਤਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਨਿੱਘਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇੱਕ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਫੀਚਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਮੰਨੀ, ਮੈਂ ਕਹਾਂਗੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਮੰਨੀ ਪਰਮੰਨੀ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਫੋਰਸ ਤੇ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਡਾਇਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ NYPD ਦੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਰੈਂਕਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਚਰਚਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ 103 ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਮਾਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਕਿ ਜੋ टॉप लीडरशिप है उस पुलिस प्रीसिंक्ट दी ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀ देसी साउथ एशियन लीडरशिप हैगी ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਇਨ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਨੂੰ, ਇਨ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫਿਸਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ ਨੂੰ ਲੀਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੀ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ, ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਸਿਟੀ ਜੋ ਬੋਰੋਜ਼ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਜ਼ੀ, ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਐਕਟਿਵ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ ਹੈਗੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਟॉप ਲੀਡਰशिप ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਦੇ ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਆਫਿਸਰਸ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਬੈਕਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਤੋਂ ਡਿਸੈਂਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਾਣ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨ ਕੁਝ ਆਫਿਸਰਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ 1-on-1 ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਸੁਣਨ ਦਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਸੋ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਹੈਪੀ ਟੂ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਟੂ ਯੂ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ 103 ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ NYPD ਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਟॉप ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਹੈਗੀ, ਡੈਪਿਊਟੀ ਇੰਸਪੈਕਟਰ ਰੈਲਫ ਏ ਕਲਮੈਂਟ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਝ ਹਾਈਲਾਈਟਸ ਵੇਖੋਗੇ। ਐਂਡ ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੇਠ ਕੈਪਟਨ ਸਾਚੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ। ਅਗਲੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਚੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਦਿਖਾਵਾਂਗੇ। ਐਂਡ ਆਮ ਹੈਪੀ ਟੂ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਦੈਟ ਕੈਪਟਨ ਪ੍ਰਾਤਿਮਾ ਭੁੱਲਰ ਮਾਲਦਨਾਰੋ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਫ਼ਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਈ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਕਟਿਵ ਆਫਿਸਰ ਹਨ। ਐਂਡ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਆਫਿਸਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਫੀਚਰ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਸੋ ਚਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ 103 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਡੈਪਿਊਟੀ ਇੰਸਪੈਕਟਰ, ਉਸ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ ਦੇ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਕਟਿਵ ਆਫਿਸਰ ਡੈਪਿਊਟੀ ਇੰਸਪੈਕਟਰ ਰੈਲਫ ਕਲਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਚਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ 103 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ।
I'm a deputy inspector in the New York City Police Department. My name is Ralph Alexander Clement, and I have 19 years on the force. I'm an immigrant. So are my parents, but I'm like that first generation. I got to see how my parents came over here. I remember every single step that we took. So I was originally born in Guyana, in Georgetown, Guyana, in October of 1977. Went to school there, grew up there, and at the age of 14, right, my stepfather and my stepsister and brother migrated legally to the United States of America. Early years, you know, I as a kid, and I'm sure, you know, kids are very innocent, right? Parents are the ones that bear that burden of knowing the dangers. Kids are very innocent, right? Me, I wanted to come to America. It's what I saw on television, right? It's that everything that you want or you ever dreamt of, whether it be toys or food, you can have. I can walk out to the deli and get it. I can go to any store and get any toy. Back home, you couldn't do that. That was not an option at that time. You know, progress is when one generation supersedes the next. Because if you don't, that is not progress. You are stagnant, or you revert back. You go backwards, which is not, that is not progress. That is not evolution. I didn't start thinking like this when I was a kid. Is, you know, as I grew up and I saw the realities of what I went through, what people are going through, the opportunities that this great country, right, the land of opportunities, right, freedom, liberty, everything that it embodies, what it gives to you. It says, here, come, I will take you. I will give you all the options necessary and opportunities. But I'm not going to give it to you, spoon feed you it. If you are willing to work for it, you will be rewarded. And that is how I got into this. I have to also say, you know, I was adopted by my grandfather, right? My mother was adopted. Her mother, Indian descent, rice field worker. We owned we owned rice fields, right? Her father died at a very young age before she was born, and my grandmother was left with, I think, 9 kids, 7 boys, 2 daughters, and the 2 daughters were given away for adoption. One got adopted by a doctor, and my mother got adopted by her aunt, who was married to a black guy, right? Talbert Sylvester Clement. That's where I got the Clement name from. He kept me as a son. He nurtured me. I spent like every day with him. He taught me how to read, how to write. He was a sergeant in the Guyana Police Department. So it started from there, and I never took it like seriously. It never like, oh, ingrained in me, oh, I want to be like my grandfather. It's when I got here to America, you know, he passed in 2001. I call my new mentor my Irish grandfather, an Irish man, retired from the New York City Police Department, took me under his wing because I worked as a security guard, right, at Revlon. I worked as a security guard, but I was hungry. I had that drive. I had a girlfriend at the time. We weren't married. I had a daughter born in 97. I had a son born in 99. And after I got my work authorization in 98, from 92 when I came here to 98, I had nothing. What did I have to do to survive? I had to work. In our culture, to succeed, you work. There is no one else supporting you. I worked in a sweatshop. I remember sewing for Ruby's costume company. Costumes. We sewed bikinis. And it was one of those sweatshops where you just see lines of machines and people sitting down, mostly females, sewing, sewing, sewing. And that's what I did. I did that from 92 to 98. And I did that when I graduated high school in 96. I did it part-time from 92 to 96. From 96 to 98, it was 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, working for $3.25. I remember that. And I still had the motivation. Why? You have to survive. I am not dependent on anyone. I came to this country not to be dependent, but to be independent. And I had that burn. I call it like a fire in me. I mean, really burning. And I kept moving. That motivation was there because now I had 2 children who depended on me. I tell you, kids keep you grounded. Sometimes they give you that purpose that you need to push you over the edge. And that's what my family did for me. I worked in that sweatshop, we call it, right? I worked there until 98 when I got my work authorization. Then I went and I got security training. Right away, I worked 3 security jobs because one security job could not pay because I was introduced to something called income tax. So the money you make at minimum wage is less now because now you have to pay into Medicaid, right? Which, hey, that's what you have to do. You're part of society now, right? And a legal part now. So you're now giving back, to the government. And that's what I did. I worked my way up. So I would see a company paying you, $6 an hour. Okay, I moved to that company. You would see something paying $7.50. You would move to that company and you keep progressing until I went and I worked for Pinkerton, very famous security company. And they had a contract with Revlon. And that's where I met Mr. John Farley, right? And he saw my work ethic. So even working as a contractor for him, that fire is still in me to succeed, to move up. And I took the postal exam. And I remember I passed it. They called me. They offered me $16.10, I believe, an hour starting. So I went up to Mr. Farley. I said, "Sir, great working with you, but I'm leaving for the Postal Service." He says to me, he goes, "Would you like to work for me?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm a contractor." He goes, "No, I will hire you to work for Revlon directly in. I will pay you $16.50 an hour." I said, "Okay, why not?" He went down to the 4th floor where human resources, where I see him going back and forth, comes up. He goes, "You're hired." So I didn't go with the Postal Service. I stayed with Revlon as an employee of Revlon. Now, this is where he told me something interesting, right? As time progressed, a week, 2 weeks, he sits down with me. He goes, all right, Ralph, now what do you really want to do for your career? I said, oh, Mr. Farley, I'm working for you, right? I got this job. He goes, no. He goes, what do you want to do for your career? This can disappear. What do you want to do for your career? Now, I'm not telling you what to do, but police department, and I think he was a little biased because he was a detective. Police department, right? You'll retire with a good pension, right? You wouldn't be rich. You will live comfortably. You'll do good deeds. You'll help out the community, right? And you have a pathway for promotion to excel there. My aim was to join the NYPD, and that is exactly what I did. So in 2004, I took the exam, passed. They called me. They processed me in 2005 up to April 2005. They had to stop because I didn't have my citizenship. So I went to my local politician. You know, I spoke to them. They wrote a letter, and it expedited my citizenship. So I was able to join that July 2005 class. And it's all history. July 2005, I joined, 7/11/05. I graduated in December of 05. You know, rookie in Midtown South, learned a lot. In 6 months, I was transferred to the 6th Precinct, the West Village. Beautiful place. I mean, I enjoyed being a police officer. So far in my career, people would ask me, hey, Inspector, what's your most favorite time, enjoyable moment on this job? Well, it's being with my partner as a police officer in the 6th Precinct. Not being a deputy inspector, all the accolades, getting promoted. No promotion. It's being with my partner in the 6th Precinct for 4.5 years, responding to jobs in the sector. Going back to my career as a cop or as a police officer, 6th Precinct, again, that fire in me, I took the sergeant's exam 3 times. So I took it one time before I was eligible to practice, to see what it is to get into that zone, to sit down, to watch the time, to time myself, see what the questions, to set it up, right? Because I was determined. I was determined to be a captain, right? We can take 3 exams on when you're in the police department: the sergeant, lieutenant, and captains. Those are the only 3 exams you have to take. You earned it. You did the studying. You passed the exam. No one gave it to you. You earned that. And that's what I was hell-bent on doing. The second time I took it, I did well. I came out knowing that I had a minimum of 85. My score was actually 87. So I knew I was a second class promoted in 2010. And I became a sergeant in 2010. I went to Transit. Transit District 4, which covers Manhattan, the lower part of Manhattan and part of Upper Manhattan. I was a sergeant there for a 1.5 years. Then I went to District 3, which is also Manhattan, but Manhattan North. It covers, you know, part of Manhattan North from 59th Street all the way to 205 Street. So I was there as a sergeant for 1 year. So within that time frame, that 2.5 years that I spent in transit, I studied to be a lieutenant. I studied very hard, and I only spent 2.5 years in the rank of sergeant. I got promoted in 2013 to lieutenant. And then I came here to the 105th Precinct in Queenstown, right next door, St. Albans, Rosedale, right? Very close to home. A setting that I'm accustomed to. Now we're getting to the community part of it, where now I see residents, people that look like me, right? The culture. You drive by, you smell the curry, you smell the good food. You're like, wow, it brings me back. Memory lane, right? You see the sweets in the store, right? The jalebi, the gulab jamun, everything. You're like, wow, this is like home. You know, as I kept going up the ranks, you know, lieutenant, I spent 3.5 years as a lieutenant. And, you know, again, I took the captain's exam. But in between this, you know, I had 64 credits. To be a lieutenant, you need 96 credits, right? 96 credits. So I went back to John Jay while I was a sergeant, you know, and, you know, you study, You study again. I didn't come out with a degree. I came out with, I believe it was 110 credits, but the goal was to get to lieutenant. So I had enough, made lieutenant, and then I took the captain's exam when I was in the 105th precinct. The first captain's exam, and this is very important, for those watching, I failed, right? I studied hard. I studied very hard. I failed the first captain's exam, and failure is a part of life, right? Some people give up, when they fail, but you can't. If I've given up, as a lieutenant, right, knowing that my dream was to be a captain and a precinct commander, then I wouldn't have been here today, right? I wouldn't have my 2 executive officers with me here today, making history. I dusted off myself. I said, okay, I'm going to go at it again. So 9 months later, lucky for me, there's another captain's exam schedule. And I was able to take it. I was able to pass it. Now, when I passed that exam, I had about 110 credits, right? So now I needed a bachelor's degree to be a captain. So while I was on patrol in the 105th precinct as a lieutenant, I did online schooling, got my bachelor's, and then I was promoted to captain in 2017. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. She did everything, right? She did the cooking, the cleaning, the PTA meetings, the homework, just so that I can concentrate on studying, working, studying, working, promoting, studying, working, promoting, right? So without that, I couldn't have been successful. And then, of course, that is the close family here, but you speak about your mother, your father, your cousins, right? That's support. And that's what we need. We need that support to be successful. I became the executive officer of the 13th precinct in Manhattan, Gramercy Park area, very beautiful place. A good mentor there, Chief Timony, he retired now. And he trained me very well. One thing I remember going in as an executive officer, brand new executive officer. I was his 4th executive officer. He was a deputy inspector like myself at that time. We shared the same office, opposing ends of the office, desk facing each other. And one thing I remember asking him, I leaned out behind the computer screens and I said, Inspector, please teach me everything that you know. He leans out, he gives me this weird look. He goes, okay. And he did. He did. The teaching wasn't over, before I had to leave his side. But, my time with him in the 13th precinct, he taught me everything. And Manhattan is a lot of parades and protests, right? And he taught me how to do all of them so far. I would say we spent 8 months together in the 13th. He was asked to go to Midtown South Precinct. Again, the same precinct where I first started on my rookie career, right, as a cop. So he now was going to be the commanding officer of Midtown South, which is very prestigious. He was going to be promoted once he got there to full bird inspector. So he asked me, he said, Ralph, would you come to Midtown South and be my executive officer? I said, I would like to, Inspector, but I'm a rookie captain. I have 8 months in. There's a lot more people ahead of me because Midtown South Precinct, it's kind of a launching pad. When you're an executive officer in Midtown South, the next move for you is to be a commanding officer. That is it's like a launching pad then. It's kind of like the 103rd Precinct. When you come here as an executive officer, it's the launching pad. The next move for you is a commanding officer position. So it means the department has faith in you and they're prepping you for something bigger. I said, yeah, I would go, but I'm a rookie. I got the call 2 days later. Hey, not actually, after he spoke to me, 2 days later, they said, oh, yes, congratulations, you're going with Inspector Clement. So I was his executive officer again. I spent 5 months with him there. So we completed a year cycle together. He showed me every parade and protest, how to run it, how to do this, how to do that. answered any questions I may have had, how to deal with crime scenes, how to write 49. So I had a very good mentor, right? When it came to being prepared for the commanding officer position. So I left him, I think 13 months we spent together. I was transferred to be a commanding officer of the Homeless Outreach Unit. And, 2018, I took that position over. I had it until 2020, July of 2020, the unit was disbanded during the downsizing. And I was transferred over to Midtown North Precinct, which is a neighboring precinct to Midtown South. And then in 2020, I got the 9th Precinct. Now I'm the commanding officer of the East Village, right next door. I'm accustomed to that neighborhood, sights, sounds, places, right? But Midtown South, second in command of Midtown South. When in 2005 and half of 2006, I stood as a footpost, as a rookie in Times Square. Now I am the second in command of that command. The same place I landed in New York City. First steps on the Greyhound bus, Port Authority right there. Right there. Second in command. So wow, life is very interesting. It prepped me. I got promoted to deputy inspector there. It prepped me for a bigger, busier command, which is this command, 103rd Precinct. Very busy, a lot going on, but it's where I call home. It's where a lot of people call home. A lot of cultures, a lot of mixtures, a melting pot of everything that you can think about. And, it reminds me exactly of Guyana. I have, yes, Indian family, Black family, Portuguese family, Native family, Chinese family. That is what this reminds me of. Exactly that. When you come into this country, right, it provides for you. What do you give back to it? And that's why I'm here. All that knowledge that Inspector Timoney and everyone else I've met, or Chief Timoney that I've met, along my life, along my career, I've gathered all that information, that skill set. I bring it here. I bring it back to the people who give me that start, to give it back to them. When they see us in these positions, right, you have 3 DESI executives, right? Never before in one of the busiest commands in the entire city. It proves a point that we can do it, right? To the little boys and girls and parents out there, grandparents, whoever, looking, seeing, it can be done, right? And it doesn't matter skin color or nationality. It shows you the American dream, and if you pursue, hard work pays off. Opportunities are there. You just have to work hard. It's not going to happen in the snap of my finger overnight. You have to put it in. Put in the work. Get that experience, right? Because when you're now supervising people, you need to know what their responsibilities are, right? Like I know what a captain should do, what a lieutenant should do, what a sergeant should do, right? Because I've been through all those ranks. I know. And I know the expectations. And I also know the shortfalls, because there are shortfalls in every single rank. So you're able to correct it. People looking, right? Because I was the one looking. I was the one standing in the row or sitting on my couch going, oh man, what do I do? How do I do it? Just do it. The gates will open up. Okay? You will have a mentor, maybe. Maybe you'll not have a mentor, but trust me, you will become a mentor, because you will see the need for one if you never had one. That's what it is.
I'm Captain Sachi Singh, currently assigned to the 103 Precinct as the executive officer. I'm actually the second executive officer in this precinct. Just like the inspector, I was born in Guyana back in the late 80s. During the early 90s, my parents migrated from Guyana to New York City. During that time, they lived in Queens, in the within the confines of the 106 Precinct. I lived there for many years, basically my entire my entire childhood life. During that time, I attended elementary school, junior high school. I actually attended high school not too far from here. The school is called Thomas Edison High School. After high school, I had an option. I could have joined the union, the electrical union, because Thomas Edison High School was a vocational school, or still is a vocational school. So, you know, at the end of high school, you had an option to go into the plumbers union, the electrical union, or any type of trades union. But I chose to go to college. My goal was to become an engineer. I got into the civil engineering program at City College of New York. I started my education there, and in about 2006. And during that time, you know, I realized I wasn't really too interested in civil engineering. And one day, as I was exiting the school, I seen this booth set up in the lobby of the school. There was an officer standing behind that booth dressed in an NYPD uniform. His name is Officer Galindo. So he stopped me. He was like, hey kid, what's your plans? So he began telling me about the police cadet program, and you know, the benefits of the cadet program. We'll cover some of your tuition and the pay. At the time, the pay was pretty good. I think it was about $14 an hour, which was a bit above minimum wage. So I said to myself, I was like, you know, this sounds like a very interesting program. And, you know, maybe I could make a really good career from doing this. So I signed up, I attended the orientation. After the orientation, I filled out all the paperwork to become a cadet. You know, it's very intensive background check paperwork. They would need really good references to, you know, get started with the police department. So from there, I got a call. They said, hey, you know, you have a position to become a cadet. Would you like to attend the cadet academy? I can't remember exactly how long the cadet academy was, but it was about 6 to 8 weeks. I attended the academy, and after graduating the academy, I was placed in the 113th precinct in the police detective unit. And, you know, that really opened up my eyes, because I was like, wow, this is something I've never seen before. My first day there was a small jail cell upstairs in the squad. There was about 20 detectives working at the time. Further back in the office, there was this thing called the box. If they had an arrest and they had to debrief someone or speak to them in regards to a case, they would bring that person into the box, conduct the interview. And where the box is located, there's a big like a two-way mirror. So if, you know, a supervisor or another detective wanted to go behind that mirror and just look to see what's going on, you could go back there. So sometimes I'll take a quick look back there and be like, wow, this looks really cool. It's just like TV. There's a detective, there's a suspect, and they're talking to, the detective is debriefing this guy or a girl in regards to a very important case. Those moments inspired me. So, you know, I just don't want to be a cadet. I now want to be a police officer. During my time as a cadet in the 113, believe it or not, I actually got a call from the police commissioner's office. And they're like, hey, you're a cadet. I see your GPA is really high. We would like to, you know, bring you in for an interview at the police commissioner's office. You know, to me as a cadet, I was like, wow, I'm a cadet. And now I'm getting a phone call at the police commissioner's office to work at the front desk. So I went in for an interview. There was 3 chiefs that interviewed me. And they're like, all right, you know, you're a cadet. Your GPA is really good. You communicate, you know, seem to communicate well. We would like for you to come over to the police commissioner's office. I never made it to the police commissioner's office, but a week later, I got transferred to OMAP, which is the Office of Management and Planning. Works directly with the police commissioner's office. My interest for this job grew even more. Being in the 113 police detective unit, I got to see the investigative side of the job. Now I'm at the oversight, where I get to see how plans are drawn out, the budget is made, how one police plaza communicates with City Hall, the City Council, the budget book, future plans, how recruitment's done, how much it costs to, you know, recruit someone. And I'm like, man, this is really interesting. There's a lot of data and technology that goes into making these plans. And that really solidified my decision into becoming a police officer. In 2010, I got sworn in right here in the 103 precinct. And I remember parking my car and, you know, walking to York College. And I'm like, wow, I'm about to swear in as a police officer. There was a ton of paperwork, a lot of people. The room was really hot. And I remember I wanted to take my jacket off, and that wasn't allowed. Couldn't even move. You had to sit down, fill your paperwork out, and be very quiet. I was like, this is intense. It's a lot more intense than the cadet academy. So filled my paperwork out, stood up, put my right hand up. I swore in with about it was about 1,600 other people at the time to become a police officer. From there, went directly into the academy, spent 6 months in the academy in New York City. And I was eventually transferred to the 7-9 precinct to do impact on Fulton Street, which I loved. I was able to stand on foot posts, talk to people that I knew that looked like me, and eat food that I loved. So it worked out for me. And that is the best time I ever had on this job, was during impact. I met a lot of people, a lot of cops, and I got to know a lot of the community very well. From there, all of a sudden, I got transferred to the 7th precinct, the Lower East Side, which is the lower part of Manhattan. Spent a very short time there on patrol. My partner at the time was actually Guyanese. During my time in the 7th, I registered for the upcoming sergeant's exam. And I was able to study for about 6 to 8 months. Took the sergeant's exam. I scored pretty well. And then I was promoted first class in December of 2015. At that time, I got transferred from the 7th to the 6-7 precinct, which is East Flatbush. And the amount of knowledge that all the officers knew of the neighborhood, I was, astonished. I was like, some of the officers that didn't even look like me knew a lot more about my culture than I did. And I was like, wow, this is really good. One of the important events in the 6-7 precinct is Juve. So Juve is a celebration that leads up to West Indian Day Parade. And, it's a very important day for the Caribbean community. And I was fortunate enough to, help plan that detail. It took a few months for only a, 3 or 4 day event. But I was very fortunate to help plan that detail, meet some of the mass camps, some of the people in charge of planning the parade route, meeting with the, MTA, sanitation. And I from there, I grew as a supervisor. I supervised cops, and now, hey, I'm planning some events now. So personally, I was growing a little bit every year. It was gradual growth, and it was very consistent. Lieutenant's exam came out, and I was excited to wear this white shirt because, lieutenants and above wear a white shirt, and that's like a very prestigious thing on this job. It feels good to wear this white shirt. So that was an exam that I studied a lot for. Unfortunately, I didn't do as good as I did on the sergeant's exam, but I passed it. And then I got promoted a little bit later. I got promoted in 2022 to lieutenant. And then I went to the 104 precinct in Ridgewood, Queens. The way it worked, actually, I was still a sergeant at the time the captain's exam came out. So I was like, hey, you know what? I'm not a lieutenant yet. The captain's exam is in a few months. I don't know if I'm going to get promoted to lieutenant in order to take the captain's exam. So I was like, I have to do it. As a sergeant, I started studying for the captain's exam. And luckily enough, 2 months before the captain's exam, I got promoted to lieutenant. June 28th, 2020, which is not that long ago. So I studied for the captain's exam, took that exam, hit, enter, and I passed. During my 2 years as a lieutenant in Ridgewood, I was waiting to get promoted to captain. And then again, on June 28th of 2024, exactly 2 years later, I got promoted to captain and spent a month in training. After training, I was transferred to Patrol Borough, Queens South. I did a month in the borough, just trying to get a feel for all the commands in the southern portion of Queens. And Chief calls me into the office one day. He was like, I got something really good for you. This is really good. You're going to be going to the 103 precinct. And to me, it was a shocker because, like the inspector said, this is a place where you come to get move on to become a commanding officer as your next step. So I was a little bit anxious, but I was happy because I know it's a lot of work. Today I'm here, and again, this community, a very diverse community. There's everyone you could think of that lives in this community. For me being here, and for Inspector Clement being here, and for the other XO, Pratima Maldonado, to be here, it is, it's something you don't see every day. Like, if I lived in this community and I seen that, I would have a smile on my face.
Once again, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਪ੍ਰੀਸਿੰਕਟ 103 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਕੁਈਨਸ ਜਮੇਕਾ ਬਰੋ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਸਾਰੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਟੌਪ ਬ੍ਰਾਸ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਦੇਸੀ ਬੈਕਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ। ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਡੈਪੂਟੀ ਇੰਸਪੈਕਟਰ ਕਲਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਈ, ਕੈਪਟਨ ਸਾਚੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਈ। ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੈਪਟਨ ਭੁੱਲਰ ਮਾਲਡੋਨਾਡੋ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਨ। ਇਨ ਆਫਿਸਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਈਲਾਈਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ NYPD ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨਸ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਦਰਜਾ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਵੱਧ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਜੋ ਕੋਈ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂ ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਇਹ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊਜ਼ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕੀਤੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਸ ਕਮੈਂਟਸ ਕੰਸਰਨਸ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲਿਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ info@jusbroadcasting.com, ashmita@jusbroadcasting.com। ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦਿਓ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ। ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।